All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Skype a Scientist Live, our last session of the semester. Today, we are here with octopus biologist Meg Mindlin, who studies something that we'll get maybe into a little bit today, but might be a little too deep of a, in the weeds. But it's called RNA editing. Very cool stuff. Allows octopuses to be super adaptable to different places and situations in their lives. Yeah, so I guess we'll just kick it off right to Meg. Meg, thanks for being here with us.
Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Great. Okay, so Meg's going to introduce, who she is, what she does, why she likes it. If you have questions, and I hope you do, because this is a Q&A, please put them into the Q&A function of the Zoom. And we'll try to ask as many as we can. Over the course of the year, as many of you know, we match scientists with classrooms, scout troops, libraries. And if you have a summer camp or a library or anyone that needs a scientist, please sign up. We match all year. So you can get a scientist just for your group at skypeascientist.com. At this point, I'm going to hand it over to you, Meg.
Hello. Like Sarah said, my name is Meg Mindlin. I am a graduate student at Walla Walla University, and I study octopus's ability to adapt to an ever-changing environment using a molecular process called RNA editing, which is very tricky, and we probably won't talk too much about it, but it's very cool, and I'd love to, if you're interested, answer your questions. But I thought I'd start off a little bit by showing what it looks like to be a scientist and to do octopus research. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. So I have a couple photos of just like what it looks like to do octopus research. And I'm going to start off by what it looks like to collect octopuses in general. So we will go to our dive site and dive down and collect these old beer bottles that the octopuses actually live in. And then we will try to get them out of their beer bottles into these little red Nalgene bottles, which takes a lot of time, honestly, because they do not want to come out. And so eventually we'll get the octopus out. Sometimes they already come out and they'll just be in the little baggie that we put the bottle in to make sure that there's no escapees while we're diving. And then we'll put them into these red bottles that they'll then use as their den while we have them in our lab because they can't see red. So to them, they look like they're totally hidden and unable to be seen. But to us, we can totally see them still and check on them even when they're in their den. And so then we'll transfer these octopuses back to our lab from the ocean into a giant water cooler. So we'll have the Nalgene bottles with some mesh on them and a little rubber band to hold them together so they don't get out, though a lot of the times they do get out, and we'll have free roaming octopuses in the cooler, which is always a lot of fun. But then we'll get them back and we'll have them in their little bottles. And as you can see, we can totally see what's on inside of them. We have a very I think a lot of cephalopod labs in general have a very DIY approach to keeping octopuses. So their little houses for while they're with us is actually just Tupperware containers and storage containers that we have drilled holes in so that we can put water in them. And they lock nicely, but even with the little locks on the top, we'll still put some bricks on top to make sure that nobody gets out. So this will be their little home for the little bit while we have them. And it's a lot of fun. We'll have anywhere from like 20 to like 40 octopuses in a summer. You can see in this video on the left that we just have rows and rows of octopus tubs, and that is us first cataloging the octopuses. So we'll weigh them, take some measurements, sex, everything like that, and then put them into their little tubs. And yeah, and then once they're done with the summer, when we've done various experiments, we put them back into little baggies. They're only in the bags for a very short amount of time while we transfer them from our car cooler back into the water, which is kind of fun because we just have these giant bags of octopuses. And it's very fun photo op because you get to be a scientist and take photos with these giant bags of octopuses. But yeah, we do a lot of things with them. I don't want to take up too much time, but like we even have specimens, like these are all deep sea octopuses called moose octopuses that we've kept specimens over the years that now will be used for future research, like describing a new genus maybe. And we can do a lot of fun things about it, like we'll take measurements for them and everything like that. We also do a lot, our lab studies ocean acidification primarily, so we'll do a lot of experiments on acidification. Here we have like this custom made tank that we made that actually is able to have an acidification gradient. So one end will be very acidic and the other end will be normal. And then we'll put a little octopus in them and see how they react. And for me, that's what I did this summer, seeing whether they choose to be in more acidic or choose to be in less acidic. It was a very short project. We didn't really get conclusive results, but it was a very fun thing to do and just see, especially as it was my very first summer as a graduate student. We've done lots of other things like here, one of our lab mates, Joy, is doing the genetic sex determination for octopuses. So how octopuses determine their sex molecularly. So here we are taking all of our little samples, me and my PI Kurt. And then we also like the things that we do, we'll have like little octopuses in jars all the time. So you get really nice, fun photos of them. And I think that's everything. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's get into the questions. You ready?
I'm so ready.
All right. Mrs. Cooper's third grade class would like to know, why is the ink from an octopus black?
Because it contains melanin. So like the same pigment that we have in our skin that gives individuals different skin color is also why octopus's ink is black, because it contains a lot of melanin.
Sweet. All right, next question. How do octopuses regrow their arms?
I don't know if we totally know the exact mechanism of how that happens. I know it's being studied currently, and we're doing a lot of like just basic introduction to studying that, because there's a lot of stuff that we have to know first before we can get into how does this actually happen, which right now a lot of their regeneration is focusing just on like the different types of tissues in an arm and what that composition is made up of, and then they can begin to understand like how regeneration actually occurs. But I would assume that it's going to be sort of similar to, you know, like when a lizard chops off his tail and he can regrow his tail, or like there's C. elegans, which is a type of worm that when you cut them in half, they can regenerate. There's lots of other animals that can regenerate. We just don't currently understand the mechanism in octopuses, but we think it would be similar to how other animals can do it.
Very cool. I think it has something to do with stem cells in different animals have different
Yeah.
like propensities to
Yeah.
regrow. Stem cells are like in our bodies all the time. And some parts of our bodies have less of them than others. Stem cell basically means like it has the potential to be various different types of cells as it divides. And so there's some cells like or let's say our skin cells or whatever, they've already become the thing that they will be for the rest of time. You can't take a skin cell and like kick it back into the like parent of that. We're getting deep into cell biology right now, so I'm gonna stop. But
Yeah, and
that's kind
stem cells in octopuses were just discovered recently. So we didn't even
yeah,
know where stem cells were in octopuses until recently. So we have a long way to go on that end.
totally. All right, Shelly wants to know, can octopuses really change colors?
Yes, they can. And they can do it through like a couple different mechanisms of what's going on within their skin. So they have a few different types of organs and cell types, one being chromatophores, which is their main color changing organ, which is like a little ball of ink that is connected to a bunch of muscles. So they can expand it to show the color or constrict it to show no color. And that's one of the ways that they can change the color. And then also those chromatophores are connected to your nerves, which makes them like really fast. So they can do this really quickly in a blink of an eye because they're directly connected to the nerves. And so it's just like, I need to change color, boom, I'm changing the color. And then they have a couple different things layered within their skin. So chromatophores are the main one, but then you have radiophores, which are like little thin sheets of protein that can reflect and give you like the blues and the purples. And then you also have leucophores, which are going to reflect light. And so that gives you bright white patches. And then you also have photophores, which create light. And they can do that through a few different ways. So all those things on top of them allow them to change color.
Awesome. Owen would like to know, can octopuses breathe out of the water?
Yes, they can. We actually, I believe, because my PI has, or my, who runs my lab does a lot of study of this. And I believe from his study, actually, he found that they aren't breathing out of water. So they kind of just hold their breath until they get back into the water. And they're able to do that for long periods of time.
Sweet. That bottle that you showed that those octopuses are living in the ocean, they've got like a pretty small hole. Ms. Campos' class wants to know, how do they get inside the bottle?
Yeah, so they can fit into anything that is as small as their beak. So their beak is the only hard part within the whole octopus. So if their beak is like that big, just the size of the opening, they can easily scooch in there and fit because the rest of their body is so squishy. So it just conforms because they have no bones, they have nothing hard going on. So it just conforms and squishes and they're able to get in there. But it does take them a little bit to get out if they don't want to.
Cool. CHMS Upper Elementary wants to know, does your study use only one species of octopus, and which one and why?
Yeah, so I only work on Octopus rubescens, which is the ruby octopus that is commonly found in the Pacific Northwest. And the reason we do that study species is just because it's really easy to get. We can catch them locally. We have a lot of them in our native environment, so they're really easy to come by. A lot of other labs use a lot of other species, and that has to depend on like really how well they can keep it in a lab or get it. So there's some octopus and cephalopod species that are easier to keep in a lab than others. And so that's why other labs will use other species. But we use ruby octopuses because we just have them locally.
Sounds good. Tammy
Mhm.
wants to know, how do octopuses eat?
Octopuses eat the same. I mean, it's a beak. So they're gonna chew things up with their little beak and rip it to shreds and then digest it just like you or me would do. They have just a digestive system as well.
Cool. We've got a lot of questions about octopus hearts. So can you take us through how many hearts does an octopus have, and what are they all used for?
They have 3 hearts, and they are used for different things. I believe one of them is, ooh, this is a question I should have reached up on. Do you know the answer?
Yeah, so they've luckily we're both cephalopod biologists, so like anytime I can
Yeah.
back up. That's normal. When we have geology sessions, I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Okay, so they have 3 hearts. Two of them are for each gill, so kind
Gills.
of like each of our lungs. So it pumps into that gill so that the blood gets oxygenated. The other one is called the systemic heart. The other two are called branchial hearts. So branchial means lung, gill, basically. Systemic pumps the blood out to the rest of the body. So one for each gill, one for the rest of the body. Yeah. All right. Caitlin wants to know, I would love to know how climate change is affecting octopus populations and more about your research in general.
Yeah. So this is actually something that we are beginning to understand, and we don't totally know all the answers to yet. But what we've seen so far is that currently octopus populations and cephalopod populations in general are on the rise. And so we think that could be for a few different reasons. One of them being that their main competitor are fish, and fish are more heavily affected by climate change than cephalopods are. And so because fish are dying out, cephalopods have more access to prey resources, and so they're able to do better currently. In the future, though, however, we don't think they're going to do too hot. And that's a lot of the reasons because too hot of temperature and too acidic of water is really detrimental on their development and their reproduction. So in climate change scenarios, they're not able to reproduce properly. They're not able to develop properly. They can't even really fertilize their eggs properly. And then those that do get fertilized and do hatch tend to be smaller animals that are less likely to be able to survive. There's also other models or studies that have come out that show that they're going to lose a large part of their population in the future, or their ecological niche, so the environment where they best live in the future due to climate change. But with what I study, RNA editing, we are seeing that there is an ability to acclimate to a new environment. And especially with RNA editing, that they can kind of just adapt to more colder water. They're not really able to adapt to hotter water. And they can also seem to acclimate to high acidification, especially when we look at like their metabolic rate. And so we think that like, yeah, in the future, cephalopods are going to be heavily affected by climate change, and we'll probably see species die off. But we also may think that their populations will just shift and they just may move instead. So if the current environment where they are is too warm and too acidic, maybe they'll just go deep and they'll go into deeper waters, and they'll have the ability to do that, we think, because of RNA editing. So the ability to change their proteins to acclimate to new environments. And then we also see that with like the reverse with deep sea species. So like the moose octopus in the Puget Sound has actually moved into shallow waters. They're that it's like less than 10 feet, and normally they're like thousands of feet deep. And they're able to do that because the deep sea is so much more acidic than the new shallow water. So it's not a big change for them. It's not a big deal. And they'll have more access to resources because in that area, the fish have died off. And so they have more prey. And so we also see that with the bobtail squid in the East Coast as well now. So their populations will change and shift. I do think we'll see a die-off of species. It won't be great, but I do also think we'll just see species population shift.
Sweet. Thank you. Here's a quick one. How many types of octopuses are there?
There's about 300, but there's new ones being described all the time.
Yeah, especially in the deep sea. A couple different groups want to know, why can't octopuses see red?
Because, well, they don't have photoreceptors in their eyes. So they in order to see color, you need at a minimum of 2 photoreceptors in your eyes. So that's actually like these things in your eyes that allow you to see color. And most octopuses only see 1. And so they just see it in black and white. And in specifics to the red thing, I would believe it's just like they can't see that wavelength. So to them, it's dark. But to us, I mean, we can see it, so we're able to. But there are some species of octopuses that have 2 photoreceptors in their eyes, the Gepetella octopus. So we do think that they can see color, but all of the octopuses just have 1.
Yep. Excellent. Let's see. Gosh, we have so many questions, and a lot of them are repeats. Looking for one that's not. Okay, so we've said that octopuses create ink. How do they get the ink from in their bodies to outside of their bodies, and what do they use that ink for?
Yeah, so the ink is going to be located, oh, because I saw this question and I wanted to double check that I knew the answer to it before we started. The ink is located like, oh, where is it next to the ink sac? But basically, they're able to squirt the ink out of their sac, and then using their siphon, which is how they breathe, and it's going to be like located in their mantle cavity. They're going to shoot the water then with the ink, so then the ink comes out with the water that they shoot out, and that's how they expel their ink out of their body. And they use that for a lot of reasons, just like escape, to get away from something. So if something's chasing them, they'll squirt the ink out as like a little cloak, and then they'll shoot off and run away. And that's kind of their best chance at getting away, and their like last ditch effort, because octopuses are really bad at like breathing long term and exercising. So they like only have one chance to like use all their energy to like swim away, and then they're tired. They gotta rest. So the ink is to confuse predators.
Yes, excellent. The next question is from 3rd grade, Moni Elementary. How long do octopuses live? And how long have you been studying octopuses?
Octopuses live anywhere from, most species live about 1 to 2 years, less than 1 year in the wild. The giant Pacific octopus is our largest octopus, and so they can live 3 to 5 years. They live longer in captivity just because they have no predators. And I've only been studying octopuses for like a year now, but it has been a lifelong obsession. of loving cephalopods. And so it took me a while to actually get into a lab that studied octopuses so I could do what I want. But I have years of knowledge have been up in here from books and documentaries. But yeah, just a year. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. All right. We got a question from Gianna, who's 6 years old. Gianna's got three questions.
Okay.
First, have you ever seen a blue ring octopus?
I've never seen a blue ring octopus. I've never been to Australia though. That's where I would see one. I know you're going. I need to go.
I'm I'm going tonight. I'm going to Australia tonight for the first time. So hopefully I have seen one in Japan though. So all right. What is your favorite octopus?
My favorite octopus is in any other scenario, I would say the Dumbo octopus. I love
Really
deep
cute.
sea octopuses in general. I like the Dumbo or the flapjack. I know that's more than one species, but deep sea octopuses have a special place in my heart.
Really cute. Really
They're
cute.
so cute. And they're so
Um,
weird.
they're weird, they're adorable, they're
Mhm,
squishy. Yeah, real good
mhm.
stuff. Last question. How do you become an octopus biologist? Because that's what I want to do.
It's a lot of school. I'll be honest with you. It's a lot of school. I'm currently in my master's. I got my undergraduate degree in biology. I will most likely go on to my PhD, but that's not necessarily the route that you have to take. There's lots of other ways that you could get involved with octopuses. You could start volunteering at your local aquarium. And if you do that long enough, you can eventually, I mean, aquariums now aren't even requiring an undergraduate degree if you have enough experience working with them. So that's a great, also another way to get involved with octopuses is just doing their husbandry and care. Or you can go sort of the academic research route and do what I'm doing, but that does require a lot of school.
Yes, it does. Okay, next question. Is the plural of octopuses or octopi?
It's octopuses. It's not octopi. And that's because octopus is a kind of mush of both a Greek word and a Latin word. So octo is Greek and puss is Latin. And because it has a Latin ending, a lot of people thought that it would be octopi. But because it's not actually a Latin word, instead is a mush, you would then use the Greek root instead, which would be octopodes. But then the other problem with that is that it's not actually a Greek word. The word the Greeks used way back in ancient Greece was polypus. And instead, it was just a word made up by European scientists a really long time ago. And we accepted octopus into the English language. And so hence you use an English plural, octopuses.
Excellent description. Thank you. Question. What are octopuses known as? For example, crustaceans.
Oh, they're mollusks. So like your snails, like your clams, like your limpets, they're all mollusks.
Great. Elaine wants to know what's the largest octopus you've ever caught?
A giant Pacific octopus.
Ooh,
And that was like not even that big. Like she was big, but she was small for a giant Pacific octopus. Like, I mean, I don't she was like maybe like
pretty big.
big, but they get up to huge. Yeah.
Olivia wants to know, can octopuses be albino?
You know, if you're looking at deep sea octopuses, I would say, well, no, they're not even
Not the, not,
albino. It's not the
not the same
same.
way. They can be
Yeah.
white.
They can be white, but I don't know if I've ever seen like an octopus that's albino, as in it has that like lack of pigment that makes you albino. Because even deep sea octopuses, they don't have chromatophores in their skin, so they can't change the color of their skin. And so they do come off pale and white, but at the same time, they also can have like a purplish tint to them. And so they're not like traditionally albino.
Sweet. Elise wants to know, how does an octopus move if it has no bones?
With its suckers, essentially. I mean, it can move its arms, and so then it's going to like grip its terrain with its suckers. And so it's just kind of like a like coordinated movement almost of it like searching out its environment with its arms, and then its suckers one by one sort of stick into things, and that's how they move.
Their bodies are different from ours in
Yeah.
a big way. So their like muscles are their arms broadly are called muscular hydrostats. Other examples of muscular hydrostats are like elephant trunks or some other things that on whales that I won't be getting into today. And basically it's like water pressure internally helps them like push things up and down and over. So instead of having these like pulley systems that we have, they use internal pressure to move things. And then the suction cups obviously grab
Yeah.
and maneuver and like grab stuff and hand it to the other to get it to the beak. Um, Pretty cool stuff. Pretty cool stuff. Valerie wants to know, seventh grade from Newtown, Connecticut. Is their skin soft enough that barnacles might cut them?
So barnacles, I don't think will cut them because octopuses are all like covered in like a layer of mucus. So like when you touch an octopus, it's a little it's slimy. So they can't really a barnacle can't really like grip their skin in order to like cut it to like an abrasion, which is also probably like a defense thing having mucousy skin because nobody can really hold on to them. If you removed all the mucus, you could probably cut them pretty easily, but the mucus keeps them from getting cut.
Sweet. Um, William wants to know, why do cephalopods turn white when they die?
Because their chromatophores stop firing.
Yep.
Yeah. So like if they die, I mean it'll take a while too for their chromatophores to stop firing because they have a decentralized nervous system, which just means that their brain is kind of spread out everywhere. And it doesn't have to, they still have like a main brain like we do, but they don't have to relay signals back to their brain to keep moving. So when an octopus dies, you'll still see its arms move, its chromatophores firing, but eventually because it's dead, its heart's no longer beating, all of that will stop. And that's why they turn white because there's no longer any signals going to their chromatophores to fire. So they're going to be really constricted and closed. And so they'll appear all white.
Sweet. We had this question from a couple different groups, including Desiree from Mrs. Walker's class. Do octopuses poop? How do they go to the bathroom?
They do poop. They poop out of their siphon and it looks like silly string. It's
That,
like a big, like it's silly string. It's even sometimes like bright orange.
yeah,
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
stuff. Olivia wants to know, how many babies can they have?
Hundreds. It really depends on the species and the female. Some will lay, clutches of like 20, 30, 40, 50. Others will lay clutches of like hundreds of eggs. It depends on the species, but they definitely, cephalopods in general, have this sort of you learn about it when you get more into biology, like R selected versus K selected species, but they have put everything into reproduction. So they're trying to make as many babies as they possibly can to ensure that they survive because a lot of them will die. And so the more you make, the more chances you have of having ones that survive.
Sweet. Did we already ask how long octopuses live for?
Yeah.
Okay.
1 to 2 years.
Perfect. Thank you. Octopus poop. Are octopuses' blood actually blue, and why?
Yes, their blood is blue because they use copper in their blood instead of us, which uses iron, which is why it's red.
Nice. Mia wants to know, does it hurt or harm you if you get inked? Is ink poisonous? Anything like that?
It doesn't hurt or harm us. I've been inked. Um, for us, I mean, in the ocean, I feel like an animal maybe will have like sensory things, but it's not harmful. It's more just like a disguise, like a distraction sort of thing. And also the ink doesn't really harm the octopuses as well, unless you're keeping them in captivity and they ink in their tank, then that can be bad because they can suffocate. But in general, no, it doesn't harm you. It doesn't harm me. It's just really annoying. I've been inked on a few times. Yeah.
A couple different people wanted to know, why did you want to become a scientist?
That's a great question. I mean, it wasn't something that I always thought I was going to do. I thought growing up I was going to be an artist. I had always had the dream to be a full-time artist. And then I just, as high school got here, I got really burnt out on art and didn't want a career in art. I liked having art as like a personal thing instead of like a work thing. And then I kind of just thought back to like my science teachers in middle school and they made science for me really fun and I felt like I really understood it then and I had always loved the ocean and so I was like, okay, if I have to do something else, let's give marine biology a chance. And then I went for it and I didn't even think I would be doing molecular biology stuff until I thought I was going to make ocean documentaries until I took a molecular biology class and everything like clicked for the first time and I all of a sudden understood molecular biology, and I was able to relate it back to cephalopods, which had always been my love. And then I was like, oh, I think I'm gonna go full send and become a scientist. And I did. It was great.
Great. All right. So we discussed how octopuses change color. How do they change texture?
Yeah. So they have this thing called papillae, which Sarah, if you ever take her cephalopod class, she calls them extreme goosebumps, which I think is the best term ever. And essentially, they can only occur in specific spots on their body. So that's why you see them a lot, like on their little eyes, like going through their mantle. And they're basically just like stacking skin cells on top of each other to like make this papillae. And I think the actual like how does that happen? Like molecularly, cellularly, we don't know. But that is what they're doing. A lot of octopus skin and like camouflage is still a big mystery to us. We don't know a lot of how it's actually happening.
Awesome. Let's see. What do octopuses eat?
They eat lots of things. They're kind of like a little bit opportunistic, but in general, they love to eat like crabs and clams and like honestly other bivalves and mollusks, what they're related to. We feed them just mussels from the grocery store when we have them in lab or when we have them in our marine lab, we'll feed them like purple shore crabs. When we have a giant Pacific octopus, we would go out and get like the big red crabs. They'll kind of eat anything you throw at them. But mostly clams and crabs.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Clara from Jenkintown wants to know, do they sleep or hibernate?
They do sleep. They sleep just like us, and there's actually a lot of scientists right now who are studying their sleep cycle. And so we actually think that they go through something similar to us as REM sleep, which is rapid eye movement sleep. And you'll actually see them, which I have not ever seen this happen, which I'm a little jealous of, but I've seen like the videos of other scientists happen where they're sleeping and their skin pattern will like change drastically, almost like you see with our eye movements, like it going crazy, like they do that with their skin. So they do sleep. And it's really cool. And we're just now beginning to understand what that is and what it looks like and how it's similar to us.
Awesome. So cool. Xenon from third grade wants to know, do octopuses communicate with each other? And if they do, how do they do it?
Yeah. So I think octopuses are like the one cephalopod that probably communicate the least with each other because they have been mostly solitary species, though we do know now that there is social octopuses. But they do communicate just like other cephs with their chromatophores. And so the way they change their skin, but they also, you see them communicate like in Octopolis and Octalantis, which is one of the social communities of octopuses off the coast of Australia. They'll also communicate by like throwing things at each other and like shooting silt at each other. So like they find ways to communicate with each other. If a male is, annoying the crap out of a female, maybe she throws some shells on him and like tells him to go away. Like they're learning new things, and we're learning a lot when we see these social populations of how octopuses communicate with each other. Because before we just kind of assumed that they didn't because they were so solitary.
Sounds good. Let's see. Can mimic octopuses mimic any type of animal?
Um, like maybe hypothetically, but I think they would only mimic the ones that they have in their environment.
Cool.
Yeah.
Are there any animals? What animals eat octopuses? What are their predators?
Oh, there's lots of animals that eat octopuses. Well, so there's a lot of animals that will eat octopuses when they're babies, when they're little tiny, and then when they're dead. I think it's a little harder to eat an octopus when they're an adult, because they're really good at evading predators, but like sharks will try to eat octopuses, like other fish will. There's lots of things that will try. Many will not succeed. But when they are little babies or when they have just died, anything and everything will eat that octopus because they are really high in protein and really great snacks.
Great.
Yeah.
Um, Thank you so much. Miriam wants to know, has an octopus ever stung you?
So they don't sting, they'll bite. Um, and when they bite with their beak, they can also inject venom. And we do think that they can choose when to inject venom and when not to inject venom because we see a lot of differences in bites, especially from ruby octopuses. Like some people will be bit and like it won't really do anything, and then other people will have like a scar for the rest of their lives and it'll get infected and they'll go through like necrosis, like their skin will deteriorate. I've never been bit, so I haven't experienced that, thankfully.
Sounds good. That's good. I hope it stays that way.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I
there
don't
are
think it.
600 questions.
Oh my
Coming.
God.
Everybody, we're getting through as many as we can. But we can't do them all. How does an octopus sense danger?
Just like by sensing their environment. I mean, they do have really great vision. Like they have vision very comparable to ours, even though they can't see color. Like they have very great vision and a near 360-degree field. So they have no blind spots. And then at the same time, their arms are covered in sensory nerves. So they can sense everything, they can taste everything, they can see what's going on, and then also see everything. So that's how they sense their environment and how they would sense danger.
Sounds good. How do octopuses move, and how are they so fast?
So they move, like we mentioned earlier, with those muscular hydrostats and like this sort of water pressure system in combination with their suckers actually gripping the terrain. And they move so fast, that's actually going to be when they jet. So, because they don't move that fast when they're crawling on the ground. So if they want to jet, which takes a lot of energy to do, and they can only do it a few times before they have to rest, they're going to expel a lot. They're going to take in a bunch of water in their mantle and then expel it really fast out of their siphon, which is what they breathe out of. And that's going to propel them backwards and jet away really fast.
Very cool. When you bring octopuses into the lab, like how do you name the individual octopuses? How do you keep them all apart? Is it like one, two, three, or like Ted, Frank?
So previously in Kurt's lab, the lab that I'm in, he would just name them like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When I joined the lab, and also my lab mate who they're graduating this year, when they joined the lab, they also decided to start naming the octopuses. Because we normally don't name them because I think it's partly like you don't want to form an attachment to them, and then also like it's just not in science we don't tend to name our specimens, but we like to name them. So it's really personal choice. And so the way Joy had done it was they just asked their friends and families for names, and then eventually when I was posting them on TikTok, I'd ask TikTok for names, and then we name one. But eventually they get released, so sometimes we don't name them.
Wait, Michaela from Mr. Salvaggio's class wants to know, do they migrate at all? I see.
No, not in the traditional, no. Like we have seen populations move, but they're not like migrating like a whale would. They stay in their area. Yeah.
Maggie wants to know, do they only live in oceans?
Yes, there are no freshwater cephalopods. There are some squid that live in brackish water, which is a mix of marine and freshwater, but they don't live in any besides that, there's no freshwater octopuses. They're only ocean animals.
Very cool. Are any octopuses extinct or endangered?
There are definitely extinct octopuses. Off the top of my head, I don't know. So the problem with extinct octopuses is because octopuses have no hard parts, it's really hard to get a fossil of them. So when we're looking at like extinct cephalopods, it's much easier to see like extinct squid and cuttlefish and nautilus, and like then also like ammonoids, their ancestors, because they had shells that fossilized really well. But extinct species of octopuses, if we are not currently aware of them and then they go extinct, we're probably not going to know about them. In terms of are they endangered, they're not currently on any endangered lists, and that's partly due to the fact that we don't really understand fully what like climate change or anything is going to do for them. And then also currently they're doing really well. They're doing great. Their populations are great. In the future, we may see endangered octopuses.
Yes. Here's a really good question. If anybody's ever picked up, this is from Robert. If you ever pick up a slug, when the slug slime gets on you, it is really hard to get off of you, right? Is that also true for octopus slime? Is it hard to get octopus slime off of you?
You know, it's not hard. I think their slime sort of just like sticks to itself. Like slugs, they leave a trail of slime. Octopuses aren't leaving like a trail. Like their slime is just on them. And if you stop touching the octopus, the slime stays on the octopus. Like it doesn't really come off on your hands.
Yeah, it is really, really hard to get slug slime off.
Yeah.
And it is
Mhm.
just not hard at all
It's not hard to
to get
octopus.
octopus and squid slime off. It's like a little, it's like a, it sticks a little bit, but
Octopus does it?
nothing like
None.
slug. Slugs are
Mm-mm.
impossible.
Mm-mm.
All right, here's the age-old question from many different people. What is the difference between a squid and an octopus?
Okay. So right off the bat, squid are going to have 10 appendages. So they're going to have 2 tentacles and 8 arms. Octopuses don't have tentacles. They just have 8 arms. Though I know you're all like, what? They don't have tentacles? It's kind of like a technicality because what we define as a tentacle is a long appendage with a club-like foot and then a sucker of a cluster of suckers at the end. That is traditionally what we call a tentacle. An arm is categorized as having 1 or 2 rows of sucker from the base to the tip. So that's why octopuses have arms and they don't have tentacles. The other differences is that octopuses have this big squishy mantle where squid have kind of a slender one, and squid still maintain part of their shell from millions and millions and millions of years ago. So that's what is going to be called their gladius or their squid pen. And it's really thin, but it's still like a hard part. And so that's one of the other ways that we separate the two out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We have 685 questions
Oh
that
my
we
God.
didn't answer, but we answered 120, which for 45 minutes is pretty good. It's as good as we could do. We should maybe do more sessions on octopuses because we had more questions that we could possibly get to. But a reminder for everyone, if you want to have a session with just your class so that all of your class's questions can be answered, so you're not, in the fray with 200 other classrooms, request a session for yourself, just for your class. It's free. Our scientists are ready to go. So feel free to do that at skypeascientist.com. At this point, we are out of time. So we are going to ask Meg the same 2 questions that we ask all of the scientists that come onto this program. The first question, Meg, is if you have everybody's attention in the whole world and you can tell them one thing that relates to your area of expertise, what do you tell them?
Molecular biology is way cooler than you all think it is.
Great
Like,
answer.
I know it sounds so boring when you learn it in class in school, but that's because you haven't related it back to such a cool organism. And really, when you start to begin to understand how molecular biology works in animals that aren't us, way cooler, way cooler. And you will totally begin to understand things that you never thought you were capable of understanding because you have such a cool organism to learn from.
Awesome. And the second question is, you still have everybody's attention in the whole world.
Yes.
You can tell them one thing about literally anything. It could be important and significant or silly and frivolous. What do you tell them?
I have a sale right now in my store.
Hey,
I
okay.
would tell them. I make cephalopod theme merchandise with my art that I screen print myself. And right now the misprints are on sale. Those are items that have flaws to them that I couldn't sell full price that I'm now selling to you to reduce my waste for an extremely cheap price. And
Where
yeah,
can we
and
find that?
you can find them at megmindlin.com. I can put it in the chat.
That'd be great.
And 10% of my profits go towards are donated to ocean nonprofits that are committed to protecting and restoring our world's oceans and or also educating the public about our oceans.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Meg. Is there anything else you want to plug before we say goodbye?
No, I mean, if you have more questions, feel free to follow me on social media. I love answering questions. And yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much. One more thing to remind everybody, there is a game that you can download that the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute put out recently. It's called Fathomverse. Go check it out. You can play with it on your phone. It's an educational ocean game. So rad. So check that out. If you'd like to, I put the link to that and to Meg's website in the chat.
Can I
Thank
have
you
one
for
last
coming.
thing? I have a better thing. Also, if you are 18, please vote. in your local, state, federal, if you really care about our oceans, voting is the way that we're going to be able to protect them.
Sweet. So important.
That's
Thank you all
about
for coming. This was the last session for a while. We may do one all about Fathomverse over the summer TBD. We don't know yet. But I hope you'll have wonderful summers. Please keep your curiosity going while you're out of school if you are a North American student about to get off for summer break. Thanks again, Meg. Thank you, Jasmine, for interpreting for us. We're very grateful to have you. And everybody else, we'll see you in the fall. Bye.
Bye.